Have you ever felt like you're losing control of your life, letting someone else shape your destiny? In this video, we'll explore the 7 common ways weak men allow women to dictate the course of their lives and provide actionable advice on how to reclaim, control, and build healthier relationships. Lesson 1. Seeking constant approval. Because he doesn't believe in his own worth, a weak man often tries to get support from other people all the time, especially from women. He makes choices based on what he thinks other people will like, instead of what is right for him or his spiritual path. Because of this behavior, in Buddhism, this is called attachment, and it means a need for approval that can never be fully met. When a man looks for approval from other people, he lets them decide how happy he is. If a woman is the main thing that makes him feel good about himself, her wants and opinions will start to control his life, taking him away from his real purpose. He can't grow mentally because he is stuck in a cycle of insecurity and dependence, because he needs approval all the time. The Buddhist message of impermanence helps us remember that approval from other people doesn't last. What other people think of us changes all the time, and basing our sense of self-worth on that is a sure way to be anxious all the time. Men should instead learn to be strong on the inside and find approval from within. He can build a sense of self-worth that isn't based on what other people think, by being thoughtful and thinking about himself. A man can stop needing approval from other people by being kind to himself and learning to be happy with who he is. He will understand that real approval comes from doing things that are in line with his morals and going his own way, so he doesn't let other people decide what will happen to him. Instead, he walks a road of spiritual growth and inner strength. Lesson 2. Neglecting personal goals. Neglecting their own goals is one of the most common ways weak men let women decide their future. When a man loses sight of his goals, loves, and dreams, he starts to live his life through the eyes of someone else. Often this happens when a man puts his partner's goals ahead of his own, usually because he doesn't want to lose the relationship or let his partner down. According to Buddhism, the idea of right effort tells people to work hard on their own spiritual and personal growth. If you don't work on your personal goals, they become less important in your life, and you lose the power to guide your own journey. When a man gives up his goals to make someone else happy, he is giving up control of his life. Man should understand that having personal goals is not being selfish. They are necessary for him to live his dharma or goal in life. In a relationship, both people should accept each other's goals and dreams. When one partner gives up their own goals to help the other, the relationship is thrown off balance, which can lead to anger and a lack of progress. A man stays focused on his own path by staying true to his goals and dreams. He doesn't have to give up his own dreams to love and support his partner. This balance makes sure that he stays in charge of his life and keeps growing as a person. A man can make sure that his choices and actions are in line with his personal goals by being aware and reflecting on them often. Because he knows this, he can make decisions that help him stay on track and keep his relationships in balance. A man who stays true to his goals is in charge of his own life. Lesson 3. Fear of being alone. Men who are weak let women decide what will happen to them because they are afraid of being alone. Some people can't stand the thought of being alone, which can make them do things that aren't good for them just to avoid being alone. Men often hold on to relationships that aren't good for them or give up their values, and wants just to stay connected because of this fear. It is taught in Buddhism as the middle way, and it stresses that everything should be balanced. Not being afraid of being alone is a part of life that can help you grow and understand yourself better. If a man is afraid of being alone, it means he doesn't want to connect with himself more deeply. He can't see the chance of finding his true self and becoming spiritually clear because of his fear. To avoid being alone, a man may give in to bad habits, like staying in a bad relationship, or letting a woman make all of his decisions for him. When this happens, he stops caring about his own wants and needs, and only wants to keep the relationship together no matter what. This makes him feel bad about himself, and lowers his spirit over time, To avoid this, guys need to learn to see being alone as a chance to grow. Men who like being alone are more likely to take charge of their own lives and less likely to let other people run theirs. He doesn't have to worry about losing someone in order to make choices. He can do what is best for him. Buddhism says that real happiness comes from inside, not from other people or events outside of yourself. If a man is happy with himself, he doesn't mind being by himself. He wants to be alone because he thinks it will help him grow spiritually, become smarter, and find his true way. So he won't fall into the trap of letting other people decide what will happen to him. Lesson 4. Overcompensating with material gifts. Men who are weak also let women rule their lives by giving them too many gifts. Some men think that giving a woman lots of gifts will make her love, respect, or stay true to them. But people often act this way because they are insecure and want to buy approval instead of earning it through real relationship or mutual respect. Buddhists believe that material things are temporary and can't bring true happiness. It's painful to want money and things, especially when you use them to control or trick other people. Men who try to buy a woman's love with gifts are, putting their self-worth in things other than their own character and values. Not only does this make a man weaker mentally, it also gives the woman power over him. The man may feel obligated to keep giving gifts, even if it hurts his own financial or mental health. She may come to expect them as a way to keep the relationship going. This can turn into a circle of dependence and control over time. To get out of this pattern, a guy needs to know that emotions and spiritual ties, not things, are what really connect people. Giving gifts should be a way to show love, not a way to control someone. A man can escape falling into the trap of overcompensation by focusing on building real relationships based on trust and understanding. Buddhism tells people to be simple and aware in everything, even in their relationships. A man who wants to live a simple life won't feel the need to show off his money to other people. He will instead work on developing qualities like wisdom, kindness, and compassion that are much more important than any material gift. Making these choices gives him back control of his life and helps him build relationships based on love and respect, instead of money. Lesson 5. Lack of boundaries. Men who are weak often let women decide what happens to them because they don't set and stick to clear limits. Men may let women control their time, energy, and choices. If they don't set limits, this can make the man feel lost and helpless in the relationship. Setting limits is important for keeping your own freedom and giving both people in a relationship room to grow and thrive. Mindfulness is a Buddhist exercise that helps people understand their own wants, abilities, and morals. A man who knows his limits knows that they are not selfish or harmful, but important for keeping a relationship healthy and balanced. Setting limits is important because without them, anger grows and the relationship gets tense. Different things can happen when you don't set limits. A man might agree to do things he doesn't want to do, put his partner's needs before his own, or let rude behavior go on without speaking up. This hurts his sense of self over time and lets the other person run his life. To avoid this, men need to learn how to clearly and confidently set their limits. Being strict or unwilling to change does not mean this. It means being honest about his wants and needs. Both. People in a relationship can feel safe and encouraged when boundaries are clear and followed. Buddhists teach that relationships should be balanced, and setting limits is a big part of doing that. As long as a man knows his limits and tells others about them in a kind way, his relationships will be better and more satisfying. He can stay on track and avoid letting other people control his future by setting healthy limits. Lesson 6. Ignoring red flags. Men who are weak often let women decide what happens to them by ignoring relationship red flags. Red flags are signs that something is wrong, like not being respected, being manipulated emotionally, or having values that are at odds with someone else's. Some men, though, choose to ignore these signs because they are afraid or insecure and hope that things will get better or that the problems will go away on their own. Right mindfulness is a Buddhist idea that tells people to be aware of their feelings, relationships, and surroundings, not noticing red flags. That goes against this message, because it means ignoring problems that could lead to bad things. Men who don't pay attention to warning signs, let outside forces run their lives instead of listening to their own inner knowledge. Men who don't pay attention to warning signs often do so because they're afraid of being alone, confronted, or rejected. Even if he tries to make sense of his partner's actions or convince himself that he can change her, he is still ignoring his own wants and values. In this kind of relationship, the woman is in charge, and the man has no control over his own life. Men need to build up the courage to deal with red flags when they show up to avoid this. To do this, you have to be honest with yourself and be ready to face hard facts. Men can take charge of their lives and stop problems from getting worse by noticing and dealing with them. Early on, Buddhism says that we suffer when we hold on to false beliefs or refuse to see things as they really are. Men can avoid falling into the trap of ignoring red flags by practicing mindfulness and keeping in touch with what's really going on in their relationships. He will be able to make choices that are in line with his values and keep outside forces from getting in the way of his spiritual path. Lesson 7. Suppressing their authentic self. Lastly, one of the worst things weak men do when they let women run their lives is hide who they really are. Some men hide their real thoughts, feelings, and wants in order to please their partner or stay after fights. To avoid living an untrue life, the man stops living according to his own truth and starts living according to what other people want him to do. Buddhism teaches that following one's true self or dharma is very important. People who hide their true selves are rejecting their dharma and making themselves suffer. Slowly, this repression makes the man lose touch with his own personality, which makes him feel frustrated, angry, and empty. Men who live truly know what they stand for, what they want, and why they are here. He isn't afraid to be himself, even if it means being turned down or criticized. Being true to himself helps him live a spiritually aligned life and keeps him from letting other people decide what will happen to him. Being honest is important in relationships to build trust and respect for each other. That man who hides his true self is not only hurting himself, but also building a fake base for the relationship. Both people in a relationship need to be honest about who they are so that they can grow as people and understand each other better. Men can get in touch with their real selves and live in line with their nature by practicing mindfulness and self-awareness. This lets him make choices that are in line with his values instead of what other people want him to do. He can avoid falling into the trap of letting other people decide his fate this way, and instead make a life that fits his spiritual path and is true to himself. Men are weak when they don't have enough self-awareness, self-respect, or mental balance. It's not just about how strong they are physically. Men who let women, or anyone else, decide their fate, straying from their real path, and making themselves suffer to get back their power. Men can practice self-awareness, balance, and focus. They can also live their lives honestly and build relationships based on mutual respect and growth. Buddhism says that real happiness comes from inside, not from approval or control from other people. Men can avoid the traps of weakness and build a destiny that is in line with their real purpose and spiritual path. If they understand these lessons and use them in their daily lives,